I thought it was pretty important that I play the comments before the Trump speech on AM Joy, and then I'm going to make a video on the comments after the Trump speech. This one is before the Trump speech, and I am going to jump in here at points in time to make comments, so just be prepared.
All right, let's bring in Leah Wright Rigueur. She's the author of The Loneliness of the Black Republican, Pragmatic Politics and the Pursuit of Power. And Robert Traynham, he's the former Bush Cheney Senior Advisor and Vice President of Communications at the Bipartisan Policy Center. And the Reverend Dr. William Barber, President of the North Carolina NAACP, along with Paris Denard of the National Diversity Coalition for Trump. And actually, Paris, I'm going to come to you on this first because you were on TV with me the other night. It was after 11 p.m. The reporting up to that point was that Donald Trump would not be speaking at the church and that there would be the scripted event. You were very definitive in saying to me, no, he's going to speak. Do you have inside knowledge you can share with us as to whether Donald Trump is or is not going to address the congregation today?
Well, Joy, glad to be with you again this morning. And as I said before, I work with the RNC and the member of the National Diversity Coalition for Trump, not officially with the Trump campaign. But what I have been told is that first, the New York Times piece was inaccurate, and that there was no public release of the schedule, and that Mr. Trump had every intention on addressing the audience at the church service. It's important for our audience here to know that this is not a campaign rally. This is not an official Trump event. He was invited by Bishop Wayne T. Jackson to attend the church service, and in addition to that, have an interview afterwards for Bishop Jackson's television network.
Let me ask you a quick question, Paris.
Sure.
Why then, if you're saying that his story was inaccurate and the Times has stood by their reporting, then why did the campaign's rebuttal say that the campaign had changed its mind or changed its plans and he would now be addressing the service? Because they didn't characterize the story as being wrong. The campaign said they changed their plans and he would address the service.
And thank you for clarifying that. What I meant by the story being wrong was the fact that that was exactly what was going to happen today at the church. That was incorrect.
But that's not what, no, but if they say they changed their plans, then that means the update to the story is that they are acknowledging that the initial story was correct and that they maybe as a result of the story changed their plan. They never refuted the original story. We won't go into back and forth on it, but no, I just want to make sure that that's clear because you've characterized their reporting as incorrect, but there's been absolutely no evidence that their story wasn't correct.
Right. What I'm saying is that if anybody said that report in the New York Times is exactly what was going to happen in the fluidity of a campaign, that's wrong. We're going to see Mr. Trump have an excellent event at the invitation of Bishop Wayne T. Jackson. He's going to go there, and it's going to be a good thing. Just like when he went to Mexico at the invitation of the Mexican president, he showed leadership and said, "I'll go." Mr. Trump always shows up when asked.
Okay, let's break that down. Number one, the New York Times story was correct when Ms. Alcindor got the information directly from the inside. So the story was correct. Paris is over here trying to spin. Now, this is what I think happened. Subsequent to the story being released, okay, Donald Trump had made, he had created a speech that he would give if allowed to give it. The RNC, whom Mr. Denard works for, got wind of what he was thinking about doing, and they told Trump that he had to run that speech past them before he gave it. He ran it past them. They washed that speech. They washed that speech and then gave it back to him. Paris Denard probably got information regarding them going through a potential speech that he was going to give if allowed to do so, and that's why he said what he said. So the Times is right. Maybe he did have a little inside information that he doesn't want to make available to us, particularly since the RNC whitewashed that speech. Now, finally, for this idiot to say that Donald Trump always goes where he's invited, well, he got an invitation from the NAACP, he got an invitation from the Urban League, and he got an invitation for the National Association of Black Attorneys. He didn't show up at any of those. So what you just said is a crock of bullshit.
Well, let's go to Reverend Barber on that. So, Reverend Barber, I want to play you what Donald Trump said on Fox News Thursday about this trip to Detroit, and then I'm going to get your reaction on the other side. Take a listen.
Yes, you're going to Detroit for an African-American outreach. What do you plan to do there? And what's the outreach statement?
Well, really just that. We're going to have an African-American outreach. Look, I go over. First of all, I have so many African-American friends where they're doing great. And they're making good money. They're living a good life. They've got the American dream going. But you have tremendous numbers of African Americans that have really had a hard time. And I say, what do you have to lose? I say to them, what do you have to lose? Give it to me. I'm going to fix it.
Reverend Barber, your response to that.
Well, we know what we have to lose. In fact, a personal visit is not the issue. It's about his policy position. I'm a part of a group that 1,500 clergy, the revival, that took a 9-point policy vision to the RNC, and instead of receiving it, we were actually almost arrested. He's not visited NAACP. He's not visited Urban League. He's wrong on voting rights. He came to my state where the courts have said it was intentional racism by the Republican leadership, and he said the ruling of the court would actually produce fraud. He's wrong on Affordable Care Act. He says he will repeal it. That's 20 million Americans, but that's 3 million African Americans and that would lose their health care, and thousands or more because of Republican governors who have blocked Medicaid expansion. He says he's concerned about the African American community, but he says the minimum wage is already too high. There's 64 million Americans who make less than a living wage, and
All right, just in fairness, he subsequently said that we do need to raise the minimum wage. I'm not going to let bullshit go either.
54% of African Americans, point after point after point. It's not about a personal visit and a photo op. It's about where he stands on policies that impact the issue, that impact racial inequality and class inequality in this country. And he's wrong. He's simply trying to have a photo op. And I could go down everyone. He says he's going to end violence, but he works with the NRA, and it is compared to the proliferation of guns. It is counterintuitive to think that you can come in our community, have a personal visit, and that will substitute for a policy vision.
And I have to, get some responses from the folks at the table here, because Leah and Robert, as I was playing that clip of Donald Trump on Fox, both of you were reacting to it, and the word I heard coming from you, particularly Robert, was condescending.
I don't even know where to begin. Let me just start back and saying, to start with the positive that Donald Trump is going in the black community. That is a plus. He's going, to your point, he is going to a black community or to a black church and listening, hopefully, to the concerns of the black community. But where was Donald Trump back in June? Where was Donald Trump back in May and April when he presumably was the Republican nominee? But let's be honest about this. This is not about black people. Yeah. This is about white suburban women. This is about Susie. This is about Debbie. This is about Ashley in the suburbs of Philadelphia, in the suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio, and the reverend is absolutely right here. What about the policies? And I personally, as a brown person, find it just very condescending when someone says, I'm going to fix your schools, or you're going to get shot. And remember that tweet just a couple of days ago in reference to
Dwayne Wade.
Exactly. It just comes across as so insincere, and it comes across as so condescending that I'm almost at a loss of words.
Yeah, and we can show that tweet while I get Leah's take before we go back and let Paris respond to it. But we can show that tweet, and this is when Dwayne Wade's cousin was killed, and Donald Trump's first instinct was to say,
vote Trump.
Yeah, this is what I've been saying. African Americans will vote Trump.
The second tweet.
Well, the second tweet was from his campaign. We now are able to tell that when the tweet comes from an iPhone, it's from the campaign. When the tweet came from him himself, Paris, that's what he said. The campaign later put
he erased the tweet he erased it and he replaced it with the exact same thing a couple hours later.
He corrected the spelling of Dwayne's name.
Right, but he still said the same thing.
But the reality is his first tweet was vote Trump. It was not about the condescension. It wasn't about condolences. It was all about him. It's always about Donald Trump and about how he can fix things. But when you ask him about specifics, Paris, there is no specifics. When you ask him about school choice, when you ask him about
Robert, let's be clear.
Don't you love it when two black Republicans start arguing with each other?
He is for school choice and he supports charter schools.
Okay.
That is a fact.
Well, I'm hearing this from you. I've not heard this from Donald Trump.
We can let
Okay, and Paris is going to sit here and try to bullshit about Trump supporting charter schools because the National Association of Charter Schools invited Donald Trump to come before them and address them, and he told them that he would talk to them after the election. So there's another one, Paris, where Trump was invited but chose not to show up.
Let's let everybody in. First, let's let the Reverend in, and then we'll let you back in. Reverend Barber.
Right. If you look at the script that he wrote, he said he wants to improve public education, but then he lifts up a voucher program that is nothing but taking public money and giving it to private schools. It is not about encouraging and building up public school policy. He's not just speaking to suburban whites. He's also speaking to whites, particularly in the South, who for years, since Strom Thurmond took the Dixiecrats to the Republican Party, have used a kind of divisive politics to suggest that poor whites' problems are because of black people. That's why he said, your communities are poor, your community. That's coded language. In other words, this is the problem in our society. And in fact, the very policies that he supports, even trickle-down economics that would take us back to the recession of George Bush, those policies will hurt African Americans and poor whites. And Republicans are scared of African Americans and poor whites and Latinos coming together in the South, because if that happens, the solid South is over and they no longer will have a stronghold on the political electorate in this country.
I want to get Leah in because the book that you wrote really gets to this challenge, and Robert knows it personally. For African American Republicans, they're trying to sort of thread a line of really supporting the policies that are best for their own communities, right, for black folks, but also existing inside of a party that, to Reverend Barber's point, often on a policy basis or even rhetorically, I'll fix it for you, sort of I'll swoop in and be this great white hope because your communities are so bad. That's tough to defend.
Not only that, if we look at current polling, right, it shows that black Republicans, black conservatives actually don't support Donald Trump, right? So that says something when you don't even have the support of the black members within your party and who are very vocal about not supporting whoever the nominee is, right? I mean, none of this is sincere. None of this is genuine. We can look at his history. We can look at his remarks that he's giving, right?
History.
Yes, let's look at his history.
And Paris, if we look at his history,
I mean, look at the Central Park 5, if we want to look at his housing discrimination, if we want to look at him as the front of the birther movement, these are sincere problems. This is what he is bringing to the table. This is why he is sitting at about 90% unpopularity with African Americans across the board, including black women, right? Where he is rapidly approaching 100% unfavorables.
And Paris, to that point, Donald Trump is going to a black church today. He did this sort of blanket non-apology apology, where he didn't say anything specific. Wouldn't it maybe be a great opportunity if he's sitting in front of that pastor to acknowledge and maybe apologize for having had to settle a housing discrimination case in which C for colored was written on the applications of black would-be tenants in his buildings here in New York, or for having said that he would like to see the Central Park 5, who were later found innocent of the crime that they were committed of here, that they were accused of, wanting to see them executed, or for leading and fronting the birther movement. Aren't those things that maybe he'd help himself if he just atoned and apologized for them while he's talking to that pastor today?
I highly doubt that anything that Mr. Trump did would appease you or anybody else on the left or in the
You don't think those things are worthy of apologizing for?
What I do think is important is for us to adequately describe his record as it relates to when Reverend Jesse Jackson needed office space for Rainbow Push Coalition and for his Wall Street project.
Paris,
Mr. Trump provided that.
Paris, are you saying providing wait, hold on, Paris.
When Mr.
Paris,
Trump
Paris, hold on. We're out of time, but I have to say,
well,
sir.
Of course you are.
Well, yeah, we are.
Because you didn't let me say anything that was positive of Mr. Trump. You all went on and on about the negatives.
Go on, give us your comments, Mr. Trump.
The fact that when he Mar-a-Lago and his properties in Florida, he opened them up to African Americans and to Jews when it was unpopular to do so. Mr. Trump has had a continued engagement effort with the black community, meeting with hundreds of pastors on a continued basis. What you see today is just a continued...
Why is he at 0%? Why is he at 1%?
He's not at 0%.
Okay.
The economist you vote will have him at 8%.
This is you cannot continue to treat the groups that you say that you want to win over like crap and expect that you're going to win them over.
No, but you know what, Paris? You just cited him giving office space to Jesse Jackson on Wall Street as the equivalent, Paris,
of Jesse Jackson praising him.
Who has also said
Reverend Barber. I'm going to go to a pastor. Yeah, we're going to go to the pastor and let him round this out. Pastor Barber, Reverend Barber.
There's a scripture that says, you say, Lord, Lord, but your heart is far from me.
You don't know
what
his
you
heart.
say with your mouth. I'm an evangelical, I'm an independent.
So am
I don't want to know his heart. I look at the heart of his policies. You're exactly right. It's not your heart, it's the heart of your policy. And on the heart of his policies, and when it comes to where he's been on civil rights, where he's been on voting rights, where he's been on progressive economics, he has been wrong in the past, he's wrong in the present, and what he's projecting is wrong in the future. He's running to be divider-in-chief, obstructionist-in-chief, and he's simply trying to say, if I go to a black church, I've spoken to the black church and the black community. The fact of the matter, his policies are bad for black folk, they're bad for poor people, they're bad for Latinos. Economists have said that even his trickle-down new economics would take us back into recession. So you can say, not true, my brother, and I love you a great deal, but repentance would really be in order for the day rather than him trying to run a game on the African-American community. You're right, we don't want to look inside of his heart, but when you look at the heart of his policies, they are divisive, they are based on racial injustice, and they are wrong.
We're gonna pause it right there.
All right, I'm going to pause it right there. I don't know what the hell is wrong with Paris Denard, but every time he opens his mouth, he makes a goddamn fool out of himself. And for him to say that no matter what Trump does, it wouldn't be enough. Well, hell, whether it's enough or not, at least make the effort to apologize for the bullshit that you've done in the past. But, oh man, Paris Bernard, I don't know what the hell is wrong with this brother, but whatever it is, he needs to get over it.
Because all of these great guests will be back later in the show, so there will be more of all of them. So, but
all right, so I'm gonna stop it right there, and I definitely am gonna do a video on their comments after Trump's speech, which I hopefully should be able to make in a few minutes.
A speech at the Church of Bishop William T. Jackson in Detroit, Michigan. Let's go to Reverend William Barber. Reverend Barber, your reaction, sir.
He has another time.
Well, it's interesting that Donald Trump would end with this conversation about love from 1 John, but walk right over, for instance, what Jesus said about when you love, the true position is to care for the poor, the least of these, the broken, the sick, and those who've been made to feel unaccepted. He's run a campaign basically saying that Latinos are not welcome in this country. He's tried to pit Latinos against African Americans, pit gay people against the Muslim community. Regardless of what he said at that podium, he's also said he would repeal Obamacare, which would take 20 million people's health insurance. 3 million of them are African Americans, and there would be thousands more if GOP governors throughout the South, particularly, that have not blocked Medicare expansion. He also said that if you go back and listen to what he said one time the minimum wage was already too high, which means he does not endorse raising the minimum wage to a living wage. We know that 54% of African Americans make less than a living wage. And so over and over again, he came to our state, he said that we should right wrongs, but he came to our state and endorsed the wrong. And that is when the court said that our governor and legislature had engaged in intentional racism. Instead of Donald Trump saying to our governor that was wrong, when he came to North Carolina, he actually said, George, that what the courts had done would increase voter fraud. Yeah. He had said that his party is the party of Abraham Lincoln, but that is not the truth because they're polar opposites since 1968. You know, we've been the party of more Strom Thurmond and Dixiecrat. So to say one thing in a podium, but do a different thing in public policy is just tremendously hypocritical and disheartening.
Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate that response. I'm going to go very quickly to Mark Thompson, Sirius XM host. Your brief thoughts, Mark.
Well, this is the definition of pandering. If no one has ever seen pandering, we've heard the word a lot. This is the definition of it. He offered nothing concrete that he would do for the African-American community. And if love lives within us, why is he still associated with the likes of Bannon and Roger Stone and Alex Jones and all of these people in the alt-right? Why wouldn't he stand before an African-American congregation and renounce the alt-right and a lot of the white supremacy that we see displayed every day? Why wouldn't he apologize for what he did to the Central Park Five? Why wouldn't he apologize for discriminating against African-Americans in housing? Why would he apologize for some of the other ugly things that he has said to the African-American community? So no, this is not acceptable under any circumstances.
All right, Mark Thompson of SiriusXM, thank you so much for your thoughts. This is Joy Reid. That is it for me on AM Joy.